All right, we are live. What's going on, everybody? This is Rob Garcia, the Warrior Strategist, your favorite PR and visibility strategist from San Diego, California. And we are live with Brian Big Country Conwell in an explosive story that is taking place last week. I don't even know where to start with this. This is such a crazy story, but just a little bit of backstory. So I am Brian's PR manager. I do some of his business operations. I do his travel, his bookings, interviews, things like that, media coordination. And this week, we flew Brian into San Diego to present him with an award from Blue Lapis Media and VetCom. And we recognized Brian as a pioneer. After tragically losing a leg in a car accident during active duty, Brian went into a deep depression, and then he decided that he wanted more out of life, started entering para-athlete competitions, successfully winning 21 medals in various events like powerlifting, discus, shot put, and wheelchair basketball. And then Brian also does volunteer work. He works with kids. Very busy guy, a great human being. And so this is why we decided to present him with this award. So this story is about Brian's booking with American Airlines. And this personally affected me because I'm the one that booked this flight. And Brian went through an ordeal, to say the least. And we're going to talk about his experience today. Now, just before we interview Brian, I'm going to give you a visual here. This is what Brian looks like. Brian, how much do you weigh and how tall are you?
I'm 6'6" at 285.
All right. And I appreciate the info. I actually listed you at 260, so I apologize for that. A little bit more to Big Country than I thought. So anyhow, you use a wheelchair, motorized wheelchair for transportation, correct?
Yeah, it's actually a manual chair, but we have what they call a smart drive that can fit on the axle, powered by a smartwatch. You tap it on the wheel couple of times and she takes off.
All right. And then also you are fitted with a prosthetic.
Yes, I am a above the knee amputee and a right leg limb salvage.
Okay. So obviously you need accommodation when you fly, and you need some type of not really assistance, but more just a seat that won't cause you pain. What happens when you fly on a regular airline seat?
When I fly on a regular airline seat, whenever I go to sit down, my prosthetic, when you're sitting down, actually extends out further than my right leg. So it actually pushes the seat in front of me up anywhere between 4 to 6 inches. So the seat in front of me actually doesn't sit in its normal position. I'm actually pushing up on it as I sit down. So whenever the person sits down and the seat goes back, it's actually jamming my prosthetic into my hip, making it very uncomfortable for me. And then in return, making it a little bit of a hassle for the person in front of me because they technically can't move without it hurting me.
Yeah, I'll bet. That's probably wildly uncomfortable for them and painful for you. So I can see that. Okay. So for this flight, because I personally made the travel arrangements, Brett Davis, Kate Monroe, and myself all pitched in to get you out here. We personally paid out of pocket to bring you in to present you this award because we love you and we're proud of what you're doing. So when we booked this flight, and I've got some graphics, well, I'll let you tell the story first before I show the graphics. So go ahead and tell me your experience about checking in at American Airlines in North Carolina.
So checking in, waiting in line just like everybody else is. I'm called up to the front desk. So older gentleman, speaks multiple languages. Get up there, handing my ID, take the email out with the confirmation number of the flight and everything and show it to him. And as he is starting to type information in, a gentleman jumps out of line and walks around to the edge of the counter. And of course, he speaks a different language and starts talking to the attendant that's helping me. Well, of course, he's speaking to this other gentleman while he's typing in information, and he's not paying attention. So he puts me on the wrong flight at the wrong time. And as he's trying to talk to this other gentleman and spitting out the information to me, I politely was like, hey, man, whoa. I was like, if you don't mind, please pay attention to me. I was here first. This gentleman jumped out of line. You put me on the wrong flight at the wrong time. If you could just, pay attention to me and let's get my stuff straight, then you can help him. Well, apparently that offended him. Cocked a little bit of an attitude and was like, first, second, third, what does it matter? You can go fly with another airline. And that right there was just like, hold the hell up. I politely asked you to pay attention because you're already booking my information in the wrong way. You may have had me going into San Diego, but you had me going on a 7 a.m. flight, which I had no time to get to the gate if I was even going to take that flight. And we all know if you end up booking on the wrong flight, your luggage may end up getting lost. But it's like it offended him. And the attendant that I spoke to at the gate was even really discouraged about this, that no attendant is supposed to threaten you with going on to another flight. That's not their job. If they're having any kind of issues from any kind of airline customer or something like that, they're supposed to get a hold of their manager at that desk or call security. So he just automatically wanted to threaten me with, hey, you can go fly with another airline if you're going to tell me how to do my job. Well, you were getting my information wrong. I had every right to ask you to pay attention to me, especially when people are jumping out of line and can't speak English. I mean, I think I was in the right to politely ask him to pay attention to my details first.
Yeah. Were you polite and professional the entire time?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even the people that was in line behind me, you could hear him snickering like, wow, did he just really say that to that man? Did he really just, I mean, there were people that was already ticked off. I mean, they could see that I was disabled. I'm in my wheelchair. I got United States Army book bag. I got United States Army on the back of my chair so they could clearly see that I was a veteran, and this really, it's not really about being a disabled veteran. It's about people with disabilities, period. Sorry, sometimes we need that little extra accommodations to make things smoother for us. We can't just pop up out of our seat, and some of us can't sit in a normal seat. Even me going to the bathroom on a plane is like Chris Farley, the fat guy in a little coat deal. It's the fact that he was rude and disrespectful. And I mean, he kind of got called out on his mistakes, but it's not like I was, cussing at him or acting in an anger fit. I was just politely asking him to pay attention to what he was doing with me first. Then he could have helped that other gentleman. Or the gentleman could have even, asked somebody, hey, I'm cut short on time. You mind if I ask a few questions? Everybody's on a time crunch. Everybody's trying to make their flights on time and stuff like that. Nobody wants to get left behind. It was just really unprofessional on how the gentleman acted. There was no sense in that whatsoever.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. We prepaid for a seat with additional legroom. And I know this firsthand because I booked the damn ticket. And I have the evidence right here. So as you can see, I'm putting up a graphic here. This was Brian's actual booking. It's seat 08 Bravo. Okay. So when we look at that, that's confirmed. That's Brian's flight, Charlotte to San Diego. And then I pulled up a graphic so you can see. Seat Bravo right there in row 8 has additional legroom. Like right here, I marked an X. This is the seat that I paid for. I incurred a charge that said seat charge. It is right on my receipt. So this means I paid for additional legroom. Now, Brian, did they give you that seat?
After I complained about it, yes. That was another mistake that he had made. He put me in the wrong seat. He actually had me sitting on an aisle seat on the row behind him. So there was another mistake that I called him out on that he had to fix. So it's almost like he got upset with me for calling out his mistakes because he was not paying attention to me. He was more or less worried about the other gentleman that had cut out of line. And threatened to move me to another airline. He did eventually fix it. And once I got on board and finally sat down, I talked to a couple of gentlemen that was sitting in that row. They were kindly enough to move me to the aisle seat, so that way I wasn't sitting in the middle, because it still would have been a hassle to get up, bumping into the guys behind me, having to jerk on the seat in front of me just to get up. One really great thing that happened was on the next seats were first class, so the seat over to the right-hand side, there was a gentleman and his wife sitting there that pretty much had kind of followed me through the whole airport and heard everything that was going on. And after about halfway through the seating of the flight, the first class seat in front of us was empty. And I asked the flight attendant, I was like, hey, sir, if nobody ever sits down in the seat, you mind if I move up? It gives me more leg room, and it's not such a hassle on everybody if I got to get up to go use the restroom. Well, he was polite in saying no, because they're not technically supposed to do that. But after the plane was fully booked, another gentleman kindly got out of his seat and switched with me and gave me his first class seat. So that way I didn't have to go through the hassle of pulling on people's seats and other people having to move and accommodate me, which was really, really nice. I gave the guy my business card. We got some pretty cool things coming up. I invited out. I'm going to pay for, dinner for him and his wife and stuff. But it was really great to see the people that were trying to help make the situation a lot better from the other passengers.
Wow, that's amazing. And good for him for doing the right thing. So what's really interesting is that according to the Department of Transportation guidelines, and I've got them right here, I'm going to read them to you real quick. Seat assignment criteria. Under the American Carrier Access Act, ACAA, airlines are required to provide certain seating accommodations to passengers with disabilities who self-identify as needing to sit in a certain seat. Greater leg room falls under seat assignment criteria. If you have a fused or immobilized leg and need a seat that better accommodates your disability, including an aisle seat or a bulkhead seat. So under the ACAA, you are literally protected under the law. You are supposed to have a seat that accommodates your disability, and you shouldn't have been charged for it. That's another thing that irked me that the counter guy should have noticed.
That was something that I was going to mention too. You said that you actually ended up having to pay for that seat, even explaining to the people it was somebody for the disability. I've flown with American Airlines quite a few times. They're not a bad company at all, really. And I've had to actually call and make seat changes because not everybody that books my flight understands, how tall I am, how big I am. And I've heard from many flight attendants, a man of my stature shouldn't be sitting in a regular seat anyway, because if something does happen to the plane, and I'm more likely going to end up getting damaged because of how big I am. But I have never been charged to move from a regular seat to at least a row behind first class. And I was actually kind of shocked that they did charge you, whenever you're explaining to them, this is for a person with disabilities that's this tall and this big. They should have never charged you for that to begin with.
No, I agree. And the fact that they were trying to move you from something I paid for, and myself and Kate Monroe and Brett Davis all paid for, is why we're talking today and having this conversation. This is ridiculous. So we did reach out to American Airlines via Twitter. They said they're reviewing it. They have not gotten back to me yet with any type of reasonable response whatsoever. So I'm going to keep telling this story. I'm going to let people know, and we're going to get this resolved in one way or another. And you have, got to tell you, Brian, you got some heavy hitters in your corner already. Sean Kanan, star of Cobra Kai, Hollywood actor, has pledged his support for you. He's sharing this story all over Twitter. Kate Monroe, CEO of VetCom, has pledged to support you, and any help that you need in getting the word out. Kate ran for Congress recently and is a very prominent member of the veteran community. She was also at the event. She was the main sponsor and received Veteran of the Year. She was livid about this, let me tell you. And she's pledged to do whatever she can to have American Airlines make this right. So just to summarize, not only did they charge you for a seat, they refused to provide reasonable accommodation, and they violated the Americans with Disabilities Act and the ACAA, which is the Air Carrier Access Act. Also, did the guy tag your wheelchair at the gate, or sorry, at the counter?
No, they actually waited until I got to the gate to tag my wheelchair, which I thought was kind of odd. This is the first time that I've ever traveled with any airline that they've waited until I got to the gate to tag my wheelchair. Normally, they ask you when you're first checking in your baggage. They normally ask you, how much does your wheelchair weigh? Does it fold up? What colors is it? Is there any damage, any scratches or anything like that? So that way they can jot it down before they put it underneath the plane. And they actually waited until I got to the back. And what I was asking the lady, I was like, hey, I need a tag for my wheelchair. And she was like, they didn't do it already? I'm like, no, ma'am. And I even explaining the situation to the lady in the back who was checking us in on board. And she was even pretty upset about the whole situation. She said that she was going to report it to her manager, she was able to take the code off the ticket and tell who was able to check me in. I can't remember the guy's name exactly. I do know it starts with a W, but I mean, even the other co-workers for American Airlines was already like, this should have not happened. You know, they were all apologizing. They were so sorry that this happened. I mean, once again, it's not just because I'm a disabled veteran. It's just because I'm a person with disabilities. There are so many people with disabilities that are flying to go see family, flying to go to doctor's appointments because of certain specialists that are in different states. You know, that Disabilities Act is there for a reason, and the airlines should be acting on that. They should not try to rub it off or slide it off like it doesn't mean anything, or maybe you're trying to rush through because there's so many people in line. You need to take your time. You need to pay attention to detail. If there's people cutting out of line, then you need to respectfully tell them, sir, you either need to wait in line or, you know, push them off to the side and have a manager come talk to them instead of being rude and disrespectful to other people.
At the end of the day, veterans don't want any special treatment, but we do want reasonable accommodation if it's required. And that's really the summary of what's going on today. I myself am an Air Force veteran of 23 years. Brian is an Army veteran. He's a non-commissioned officer. We have Dallas Poor popping on. Dallas is obviously the CEO of Warriors of the Wind and a former Marine. Dallas says airlines need to do so much better with this issue. And I agree. He talks about he has two friends in wheelchairs, had bad experiences with airlines. And we got Rob Catha popping on. What's going on, Rob? Thanks for tuning in. All right, so we're going to wrap up, Brian, but I do want to give a shout out. Didn't Spirit Airlines bump you up on the way home for like $30?
Yes, Spirit Airlines was actually really, really helpful. From the time that I checked in, you know, I was asking them if there was any first class seats available. They only charged me $35 for an upgrade. And that was, and I chose that from Vegas to Charlotte because that was my longest flight time. It was only like an hour, like 55 minutes from San Diego to Las Vegas. But whenever I got on the plane to Spirit, I asked the flight attendant to follow me back to my seat because I noticed that there wasn't any rows besides the first class seats that had leg room. So whenever I sat down in the seat, that lady automatically, without hesitation, was like, you cannot sit there. There's no way that you can sit there. So she moved me to first class, just automatically, didn't charge me or anything like that. There was first class seats available that were open. She went ahead and moved me, and she even made a point. She goes, with a man of your stature, as big as you are, I'm not little, people. Sometimes the videos and the pictures don't do us justice. I mean, even Rob can tell you when he first seen me for the first time stood up, I'm pretty big. That a man of my stature shouldn't be sitting in a regular seat anyway. If something was to have happened to the plane, I'm more likely going to get hurt before somebody else because those seats are so small, so narrow, and they're so jam-packed something's going to happen. So they were very professional, very sweet about everything, and made sure that I was comfortable all the way home.
Shout out to Spirit for doing that, for providing the treatment that you deserve, Brian. That's wonderful, and I always give credit where credit's due for them recognizing the situation and going out of their way to help you. That's great. All right, that's about all I've got. Thank you so much for joining me today, Sergeant Brian Big Country Conwell, talking about an unpleasant experience with American Airlines. And we hope to hear back from American soon, and hope they are working to resolve this situation, because I'll tell you what, me and Big Country are not going anywhere, and we're going to get this story out, and we're going to make sure everybody knows how American Airlines treats disabled veterans, because they need to do better. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you like this content, please like and share. And I am Rob Garcia, the Warrior Strategist, coming from San Diego, and I will see you next time. As always, stay famous.